this morning. Obviously, it's not how we wanted to start the morning, especially our final meeting before Christmas, and we have the children coming in later. But can we start the recording now, Dave? Yeah. So welcome to today's full council meeting. Welcome to members and visitors and members of the press, if there are any here. I will take apologies now from members.
We have one apology, Provost, from Councillor Burns. All other members are present, and I can advise that Councillors Campbell, Davidson, Gillian Graham, Councillor Gray, Councillor Hodge, Councillors Kenny McLaren and Mags McLaren, Councillor McCulloch, McGonigal, Maguire, Montgomery, Milet, Rodden and Shaw are all online. Everyone else is in the chamber.
Okay, thank you. And can I ask for declarations of interest? Councillor McMillan, Ian McMillan.
Hi, item number 11, motion 5 about Corseford School. I'll have to declare an interest and leave the room. And a close family member actually works in Corseford College.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you, Councillor McMillan. Councillor Jim Paterson.
Thanks, Provost. Just to declare, just to declare a connection or an interest to item 7, motion 1, the 2 child benefit cap. As I work for a charitable organisation that has called for the removal of the 2 child cap, but it's not a financial interest. I was going to continue to take part in that item.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Paterson. Councillor Michelle Campbell.
Thank you, Provost. And it's a transparency statement, so it's a connection in relation to item 4 and item 9, motion 3. It's the same interest, which is my usual, that I work for the NHS Scotland within NHS GG&C, but it's not within this HSCP area, so I will be staying and participating in those items. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Sam Mullen. Okay. I think that's all declarations of interest, but as usual, if you can remember anything during the course of the meeting, please just let me know as soon as you can, and we will note that interest, okay? Sometimes it's not always evident that you do have an interest in something until the discussion ensues, or you read another part of the reports. So thank you for that. Before we actually move on to the business of the meeting today, I do have a couple of announcements and pieces of information to give to you. You will notice that the chair has changed, that I'm sitting in a normal chair. But just to let you know, it shouldn't affect the way that the meeting runs. If you want to let me know that you want to speak, just put your hand up on your laptop or stick your hand up high in the room. I will see you. Hopefully it won't be too difficult or cause any problems. I also have a couple of pieces of sad news to let you know about. I've heard of a couple of deaths of people that we know. One was Brent Dory. Brent was a council officer here, and he's very sadly passed away very recently. So I know that a lot of people in here knew Brent. Brent was here. I can't even remember. I think Brent left here maybe about 10 years ago, around about then. So he was well loved by lots of us who worked with him, and he worked closely with the Provosts at the time. So I just want to send our condolences to Brent's family and friends. Also, Ian Simpson, who worked with the Chief Executive's section. I know the councillors who have been here a bit longer will only be the ones that remembered Ian. Similarly, he left the council a good few years ago, and I don't think Ian kept very well from what I hear. But he was a very well liked and respected man and member of staff. So again, I want to send condolences to his family and friends. And that brings me on now to former Provost John McDowell. And I did send all of you an email about John and about his passing. And I just want to spend a few moments remembering the man who was very familiar to lots of us in this room, and to lots of us who knew him, we knew he was a man of unwavering dedication to his politics, and, you know, sometimes sharp wit and a sharper tongue, but a boundless love for his politics and his family and his community, and let's be honest, a good designer shirt. We all knew how he felt about that. So John was born and raised in Renfrew along with his twin brother Billy, and even as a boy it seems he was destined to be a leader. And back then his leadership mostly involved persuading Billy to join him in their scooter escapades as self-proclaimed mods. That's something he kept a wee bit quiet for, I must mind you. And he felt they were kings of the road. Well, that's definitely how he saw it, zipping through the town, turning heads, and, well, maybe, or his daughter says likely, causing a bit of mischief along the way, but he did settle down eventually. And after settling into married life, his working life consisted of working in and with the community. And that's something that he would go on to do so well later on in life. And he was always busy. Everybody who knew him knew he was always on the go. He just couldn't settle for a life of monotony. And I think that drive was what maybe led him into politics in the first place. And he was a lifelong member of the Labour Party, a proud member of the Labour Party, whose socialist views he concurred with. And John's council life was nothing short of remarkable. He was first elected in 1972. That surprised me. I didn't actually realise he'd been here so long. And he was elected to Paisley Town Council, and he dedicated himself to public service for over 3 decades. And that was during times of sweeping change, from the creation of Strathclyde Regional Council and Renfrew District Council. And he didn't just adapt through all of this, he actually thrived. And he served in countless committees and outside bodies, always putting his constituents first, particularly those in the Foxbar and Brent area. And just for good measure, he was always also a Justice of the Peace. And he championed projects like the youth drop-in in Foxbar and the Bridge Cafe, the Latchkey project and creche facilities for working parents, many of which continue to make a difference in the lives of local families, especially single-parent families, which were his focus during all of those campaigning years. And who could forget his passionate advocacy for the fair trade policy? He fought for Renfrewshire Council to adopt that policy, knowing it would not only improve the lives of third world farmers, but also educate locals about the power of their choices. And his sense of community didn't stop there. He was a force behind the creation of a local credit union. And I remember him campaigning for that. He fought hard for nursery provision in the area, leaving behind a legacy of compassion and practicality. And as Provost of Renfrewshire, a position he took up in 1999 and carried out until 2003, John very proudly represented the area he loved so deeply. He wasn't just a councillor, he was a champion for the people. And as if all of that I've previously mentioned wasn't enough, he was also instrumental in setting up the Foxbar Elderly Forum. Now, he'd always joke that the payback should be that there was a space for him whenever he became one of those elders, but that never really worked out, because when the time came, he didn't want to be the same age as the elders and didn't want to admit he was the same age as them, so he just decided that he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready for elderly life. He wasn't elderly enough, and he continued to try and live life like a youngster. But he wasn't just about politics and policies. He was a man of many passions and quirks, and I've been told that behind the sharp suits and polished speeches, he was a pigeon fancier. He had a pigeon loft in his garden, much to the amusement of his daughters. And he also loved taking his nephews on camping and fishing trips, because he had 2 girls, so he needed the company of the boys. And he created lots of memories with them and the occasional fishing disasters. But in retirement, John embraced life with the same energy that he always had. He spent more time in Spain visiting his daughter and his grandsons. And we suspect that he also enjoyed soaking up the sun and working in that tan. Do you remember that tan? But at home, he poured his energy into his garden, and you would never catch him out there without looking his best. Not even when he was working in the mud. He always looked great. He had a flair for passion and a keen eye for quality. Cruise and Zara were his go-to shops. And he wouldn't be caught dead in anything ordinary. In a particular shop with a letter M and S in the name was far too plain for him. He wouldn't be caught dead in there. He just wouldn't shop there, apart from if it was for his kids. He was also a well-read man, and one of his particular passions was for Robert Burns. And he loved nothing more than to spend time with other enthusiasts at the local Tannahill MacDonald Club, where he shared his local knowledge. In fact, he probably could have been a bard himself if he hadn't spent so much time in politics and shopping. His love for his family was evident. He adored his daughters and took immense pride in their accomplishments. And whether it was in a holiday or a rare family gathering, those moments were where John's heart actually truly lay. And I think I got to know him a lot more than normal folk did, because I shared a ward with him or worked closely with him there up in Vauxbar. We represented the same community, but we did bridge that political divide. His daughter Karen was also a friend of mine. But we always got on. Apart from that, we always got on well. He respected me and I respected him. And that's the way it was until he retired in 2007. And that's why I think I can speak from the heart about the things that John did for his community and the things that people still talk and say about him to this day. He wasn't a perfect man, nobody is. We all had political differences, and he had debates with some that could get very heated and sometimes quite near the knuckle, and he did have quite a temper at times, we could all remember that. But show me a person who fights for their community and isn't passionate, doesn't have the passionate beliefs that he had. So ultimately his legacy is a life lived in service, filled with John's unique humour and guided by compassion. And he was a man who could fight for nursery funding in the morning, debate fair trade issues in the afternoon, and still have time to pick out the perfect designer coat before he went home at night. He was one of a kind. And his community is better for having known him and for having him represent them for approximately 35 years. So I just want to say rest in peace, John, and condolences to his family and friends. And, you know, he will continue to shine in his community that he worked so hard for. And I know that maybe people here want to recognise John, so I will just ask if you want to share any thoughts with us. Councillor Airlie-Nicolson.
Thanks, Provost. It's just a short story about John, which I remembered. I've knew John a long time in the council when I joined many years ago. John came in to visit us in the last SNP administration in 2013. He was quite amiable that way. He would come in and have a visit and have a chat and this fit. Then he asked where his bust was, and we're all sitting looking at each other going, what's this bust thing? So apparently he had a bust made by Sandy Stoddart.
He did.
And we decided to go for a wander to see where we can find this bust. And we found it in the marriage suite, and somebody put it in a corner and put a palm tree in front of it. And he took it well eventually, because we all thought it was Emperor Nero. This bust, it was all done like Caligula style, Romanesque. So he determined then that he wanted it in the museum. And we're sitting going, well, that's not for us to say. That would need to be appraised and assessed by other people and all that. But he took it well in that sense that he didn't appreciate the fact that we didn't know where it was. But when we did find it, he took it well. And then we still don't know where that bus is today. I'm not quite sure whether he took it home.
It's in the Paisley Abbey.
Is it? I wasn't quite sure whether he took it home with him. But that's John for you, because John got about a bit with regards to being Provost and his activities, but his heart was always with the people of Paisley and Renfrewshire and the role that he did. And he was one of those councillors that you could have a conversation with and disagreements with, but the mark of the man, and he did pass comment on his permatan, as we used to call it, but the mark of the man was that he was able to come in and have a conversation, a chat, and visit all the councillors, regardless of which party we're in. But that was a funny wee story where we're all sort of giving him a cup of tea, biding time while we try and find out where his bust was that he was looking for. So anyway, that's just a wee insight into John with regards to his personality and the way he engaged with others with regards to the council and elected members. And they came in to congratulate us and it took obviously administration at that point. So I just thought I'd pass that wee comment on about, and you can visit his bust now. We know where it is. It's in the Abbey. Apparently not in the museum, so we know where it is now, and if anybody wants to pay it a visit and as I say, that was quite interesting. We all thought it was Emperor Nero or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was him. So anyway, that's my wee story about
You were
John.
quite tickled that it was in the Abbey because it's in the room with the artefacts.
Well,
So that is what he said to me. It's in the room with the artefacts, so he's an artefact.
so my condolences to John's family. And as I say, he was a very amiable man when you got to talking about him outside politics. I'm not saying he wasn't amiable with politics, but when you talk to him in general about other stuff, you got along with him fine. So as I say, condolences to his family, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor John Hood.
Thank you. I've got some really sort of personal matters. I'm a wee bit thingy. Anyway, John was at a wee bit of loose end when he wasn't the Provost. And we all used to sit down. He'd come in every single day. First of all, we would complain about a councillor that's in the chambers just now stealing fruit and ginger. I can see his smile there. He was always going about that. Yeah, because Councillor Devine was a Justice of the Peace as well. So
it was him?
I didn't want to sort of let out there, but I did. Yeah, he was a wee bit loose end. So at that time, I used to do a lot of fishing. So this is no joke. We went once a week to sunny old Millport to do some fishing. And sometimes when it was a wee bit wet, he said, "Nah, we're not going to go fishing. We'll go to the fish and chip shop in Largs." And it wasn't put by him where he went and got a second fish and chips. He liked his fish and chips, but he did like to dress smart. I had the fortune to be actually in his house quite a wee bit, and he used to show you his clothes that he had. He had extra racks out in it. He had a big, massive hall, and he had the racks out in the hall. He said, "Look at this shirt." He said, "I sent away for that, but it took me 4 weeks to get it." Yeah, so a lot of personal memories, and as you said, you didn't really cross him, did you?
No.
No, okay. Thanks very much.
Thanks, John. Thank you. I'm not surprised about the racks of clothes, not in the least. Okay, Councillor Ian McMillan.
Thanks, Provost. You mentioned the sad passing of Brent. Brent was a smashing guy who worked in the Provost's office and done all sorts of work. I bumped into him several times after I left the council, and he was always the same, always asking what was going on. And he was a former Boys Brigade member as well, so me and him got on very well, talking about the old times in the Boys Brigade. Smashing guy, and it's the first time I've heard that he's passed, so sorry to hear that. And also Ian Simpson, I got a message last week to tell him, Ian Simpson. Ian Simpson was a terrific officer, always gave very, very good advice, very dependable chap. And I know he didn't always keep the best of health, but again, sorry to hear about the passing of Ian Simpson. But on to ex-Provost McDowell. He was some character. I knew him before I became a councillor, obviously being a member of the Labour Party, and I was always very impressed with his caring nature and his passionate nature, and he always had a good word to say about everybody. Very, very friendly chap. And when I first became a councillor, I couldn't drive. And very often the meetings in here, used to start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'd go into almost midnight sometimes. And John would take me home. He would have no problem in driving, passing by Foxbar and going to Paterson and drop me off. Never complained. Was always quite happy to do it. He will be sadly missed, and you've obviously made some comments about his tan. Honestly, the abuse he used to get in the Labour group about his tan, you have no idea. Some of the things that were said to him, I cannot repeat. But he was some dresser. He was the smartest guy I've ever known. He was always smart, no matter where you met him. If you met him on a Saturday in Paisley or wherever, or in council business, he was always really, really smart. He was a smashing guy, and he used to just kid on in the Labour group. He reminded everybody he was actually for Renfrew, so he cared passionately about Renfrew. It wasn't just Paisley. He used to upset the Renfrew councillors because he would always get his neb in about Renfrew. But no, he'll be sadly missed, John. He was a terrific guy, and condolences to his family.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for all of your comments. I'm sure that his daughters will take great comfort from those. They're obviously very, very sad to lose him, but they've got some fantastic memories that all of his friends and other family members have shared about him. He was a character indeed. So thank you for all of your lovely comments. That finally brings me on to another piece of news. Not as sad as a death to announce, but you've probably all heard by now that we are going to be losing Louisa Mahon from this council. And this will be Louisa's last full council meeting. So I think it's appropriate just now for me to give Louisa all of our best wishes. Louisa's been with us for a wee while now, and she's held various positions in her past in marketing and brand management, communications. She is very, very experienced, and it's no surprise that she is going now to work on the Commonwealth Games. I think they've snapped her up. They knew what was good for them, and they've chosen her to lead their communication strategy. So I think, Louisa, they've got the best person for the job. There's no doubt about it. What you have done for us here in Renfrewshire, I have difficulty putting into words. I know it's a job for you. I know it's a job, but as you've really, really done so much for this area, Renfrewshire, in particular the town of Paisley. So I know that it's also saddening you to leave us, but you need to go. We're telling you now, you can go with our blessing. We're not going to hold on to you. I did ask Alan if there was any dirt he had on you so we could blackmail you into staying, but he said no, but he'll try and find some. So we've got about 3 weeks left, I think, to do that. But in all seriousness, Louisa, you know, we've been through a lot together. You have done so much for this council, and you leave us in a very, very good position. And I know that your team will carry on the legacy that you built. And I thank you so much, Louisa, and wish you the very, very best for the future. And I hope you'll still stay in touch with us, because I think you've made lots of friends in this council, and we're really going to miss you. Ian, did you want to come in and say?
I was kind of looking over there. No, I'd passed. Sorry.
Louisa didn't write anything for you to say, so.
No, I know. That's why. That's why it'll probably be quite wonky and all the rest of it. No, I'd passed on my thanks to Louisa in a personal capacity, an email, etc. And I did mention the fact that, you know, Renfrewshire's in a better place with regards to the comms and the marketing, and it's not had its troubles to seek the council with various issues, COVID, Dargavo, all the rest of it. And it was led admirably by Louisa through the communications and particularly the marketing team as well. And that also goes for the success of the Paisley Halloween Festival, which has been built up rapidly over the years. And as I say, I did express my thanks to her. The Paisley 2021 bid was another one, where the legacy from that was of a huge benefit to the town. We had a chat before about the reputation that Paisley had many years ago, but thankfully that's no longer there. And that's due largely down to the way the comms and the marketing and the position of the investment into the town has been done. So I said my thanks to Louise, and I'm happy to say it again on behalf of the administration and behalf of the council. I wish her well. I did say to her, she likes a challenge, if that's an understatement, with regards to the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow in 2026, I believe. So hopefully we'll be able to see our input into that. And I advise us to stay away from any cartoon thistles with kilts on them and stuff like that as well. It's a hard sell, selling that kind of stuff. So as I say, best wishes to her on behalf of myself personally and on behalf of the council to Lisa, and I'm sure she'll go onwards and upwards to that challenge. Thanks, Provost.
Thank you very much, Ian. Jennifer, Adam.
Just a personal note, you know, as a freshly elected councillor in 2017, and somebody who definitely suffered from imposter syndrome at times, Louisa gave me support, encouragement. So I'll always remember it, and all the best in the future, Louisa.
I've been kicked out of the meeting, I think. Yeah, Andy Doig. Councillor Andy Doig.
Thanks, Provost. I'd like to also thank Louisa. We shared a passion for tourism and bringing tourism to Paisley and Renfrewshire. And I remember having a conversation with her maybe 6-7 years ago. And I said to her, look, it's really important. I think the main brand campaign at that time, Provost, was Paisley is. And I said to her, look, Lisa, Paisley is more than Paisley. There is life outside Paisley and there's the rest of Renfrewshire. And she did get that and she did understand that. And I used to also say to her, look, that there's other local authorities do an awful lot more with less in terms of the history that they have. And I think Louisa deeply understood that. I appreciated that. And she really passionately tried to sell that element. And I'll really miss her. I've sent her an email personally thanking her. But I wish you the best, Louisa. I'll really miss you.
Thank you, Councillor Doig. Councillor Ann-Dowling.
Thanks, Provost, and thank you to yourself and Council Leader and everyone else who's spoken so far. I'll just briefly add on behalf of the Labour group how gutted we were to hear that Louisa was moving on. She really has had a transformative effect on the department that she's been leading. We wish her nothing but the best for her new role. We feel very jealous that she's been whisked away to her new opportunities, but we have no doubt she's going to have a fantastic time there, and I think we'll see her fingerprints all over the improved gold standard comms that will be led if what she's done here is anything to go by.
Yeah, thanks. Councillor Ann-Dowling, thank you for that. Councillor Lisa Marie Hughes.
Okay, thanks, Provost. I agree with what everyone else has said here. I first met Louisa as a brand new councillor when I got chucked into being one of the leaders of the last 6 months of the 2021 bid, which was something of an experience. So I think I can probably fairly confidently say I'm one of the councillors who's spent the most time with Louisa. When I say have spent the most time, I think there are weeks where we both saw each other more than we saw our families or anybody else. Louisa has been an exceptional leader, and that was a time that was, you know, there was just constant work for the team, and all the team were working every hour under the sun to achieve massive success. We may not have won, but I think we sort of did win, because we then got to carry on in the way that we really wanted to, without the constrictions of the bid that we would have had to have undertaken during a pandemic. I'm sort of glad we didn't have to do that. Louisa really has been transformative. She took the great goodwill we had from the people of Paisley and Renfrewshire, and also all of the local, regional and national partners that worked with us and formed the Future Paisley Board. And I think councillors generally see Louisa quietly getting on with her work, but at that board what we got to see was real leadership, but real collegiate leadership. She's a person who can gather people from all walks of life to a common purpose and make them feel like their input is really important. I think that's a real skill that not many people have, and it's been a genuine pleasure to work with you. Louise, I'm very sad you're leaving. It's been a delight. I think when you get an official that you have to work with that closely, who's a nice and fun person as well, it's very helpful. And I am not surprised that the Commonwealth of the Games want you, because I think when people see excellence, they grab it. And while I am gutted that you're moving on, I also think what it shows is that we support our people to do their best and do better things, and people who are creative continue to move, and I think Louisa is showing that. We're very proud of you.
Thank you, Councillor Lisa Marie Hughes. Councillor John Shaw.
Thanks, Provost. Just to echo everything that everybody has said. It's amazing to see us all united in a council officer, because there's some amazing council officers out there that I think are amazing, that somebody else will come to me and say, "Have you seen me?" And I'm like, no. But Louisa was just in a, just in a level of her own. It was quite interesting. I remember at the first, when we were sitting down to talk about my first budget speech, Louisa told me about Paisley Is, and I couldn't believe it. As a proud Renfrew councillor, I couldn't believe that we were moving ahead with something that I seen as so exclusive about Paisley. And we continued to argue about that for the next 6 years, until, recently we changed it to Visit Renfrewshire. And I said to Lou after that meeting, I'll miss our Paisley Is conversations, and she said she wouldn't, which I was a bit gutted about, but anyway. So no, but despite all that, despite these constant arguments about Paisley Is, we had this great relationship, and she's such a solutions focused, I mean, the Renfrew Pipe Band competition, which, nobody was really interested in at the time, we managed to get it up and running, and now it's heading to be, when you look for bang for your buck, it's looking to be one of our major attractions. So, just throughout all these years, the support, the work she's done, it's just been incredible. But I also have another strand to the relationship with Lou, because when we were arguing all the time about Paisley Is, our two daughters went to Pace and became best friends. So we had this relationship with the two wee lassies as well, and they continue to be best friends, and it's just amazing. So I'll continue to no doubt have chats with Lou, probably not about Paisley Is now, over the coming years. And maybe, I also am responsible for getting Lou and a partner Joe up to Isla for the first time, but maybe Lou wants to share that story, because it's probably not one that I want to share again. But no, we'll miss her. We'll really miss her, and I wish her well. I'm a bit worried that my last friend that went to the Commonwealth Games ended up as head of communications for Better Together. Hopefully Lou's not heading that way. All right. Thanks, Provost.
Thanks, Councillor Shaw. Councillor Eddie Devine.
Thanks, Provost.
Okay, kids. Someone else has got their mic on. Try it now, Eddie. Your microphone's not on, Eddie.
As this seems to be a bid for getting tickets for the Commonwealth Games, could I just say I got on really well with Louisa as well? Cheers.
I hate to tell you this, but you're already at the bottom of a very long list.
That's on behalf of my group, me.
Listen, I want to thank you all for your really, really lovely comments. Louise, I hope you can feel the love in this room for you, in a professional level, in a personal level too, and I hope you take that with you, and it gives you some comfort when you're away working for that Glasgow mob. But I also hope that they know that they're really, really lucky to have you, and I wish you the very best of luck, Louisa. Thanks everyone for your really nice comments. And we'll console Alan when you're away. Don't worry, Alan, we'll look after you. Okay, let's move on. We're finally getting to the business of the bit. Can you believe that? It's 10 minutes to 11. So the school have arrived the week of the Christmas carolers, but they're just getting themselves organised. So hopefully we'll get through a couple of items of business before we bring them in to sing for us today. Item 1 is the minutes of meeting of council boards and panels. Can we agree? Item 2, the Provost update, which I think Dave has distributed to all of you. Okay. Item 3, the Treasury Management and Prudential Indicators Mid-Year Review 24 to 25. Can we agree? Okay. Item 4, the General Fund Financial Update, and I'd like to bring in Alistair.
Thanks, Provost. Is that mic working okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks, Provost. At the time this report was drafted or published, that was the same day that the Scottish Government draft budget was also published. So I had hoped just to give you a very brief update as to what the key updates and key headlines are from the Scottish Government draft budget. Just for your information, and as I've included in the report, the detail of the local government settlement will not be available until today at some point. I'm assuming that the finance circular will be published at some point this afternoon, but I don't have the exact detail of the council's overall grant position in the detail I would have hoped to be able to provide to you today. But just in terms of some of those key messages from the Scottish Government draft budget, within the local government section of the Scottish Government budget, there is an overall cash terms uplift of just in excess of £1 billion, which is an incredibly large sum. But as with these things, the devil is usually in the detail in terms of understanding what that uplift means for the council's financial position. Within that large increase, there is probably a more significant proportion of that is related to items that are already in effect spend that the council is incurring. So the likes of the 24-25 pay award funding that has been provided by the Scottish Government, that has been baselined. Teachers' pension funding increases in terms of real living wage and so on, and increased funding in relation to teacher numbers and so on. So in terms of what proportion of that total £1 billion is available for direction to the council's own financial pressures, the total sum nationally is £289 million, which again is still a very significant sum. That equates roughly to about a 2% uplift in the council's core or the local government's core grant settlement. So it will protect council's core settlement in real terms, but doesn't provide much in the way of additionality in terms of addressing some of the pressures that the council has. So, but it is undoubtedly, and it's an improvement on the flat cash position that we have been discussing quite often in this chamber, in this forum. And that is undoubtedly an improvement for 25-26. I do need to caution though that the challenges over the medium term look likely to remain, and I've outlined that in my report. We also understand that there is no council tax freeze or cap that has been suggested or proposed by the Scottish Government within that overall settlement position. There are a couple of key risks that I think it's appropriate that I bring to members' attention. One is related to the changes that the UK government have proposed in terms of employers' national insurance contributions. That is going to incur additional costs for obviously every business in the country, every employer in the country, including those in the public sector. The Scottish Government had anticipated that cost for them would be around about £500 million in terms of employed staff within the public sector. We understand that the Treasury have suggested an initial funding package to address that cost of about £300 million. So that obviously leaves the Scottish Government with a fairly substantial financial gap in their budget position. Neither the additional cost nor that potential income has been reflected in the draft Scottish Government budget. So that is an issue that will need to be resolved in the coming weeks and months. The cost to the council of that change is somewhere between £6 and £7 million in terms of our directly employed staff. So if the funding ratio that the Scottish Government are anticipating, if that does actually manifest itself, then you can start to understand that the additional funding, so our share of that £289 million that I mentioned, you can start to see that getting eaten into quite quickly. The other issue that I wanted to bring to your attention was around about some other commitments that were entered or made by the Scottish Government in relation to delivering a phased reduction in class contact time, and the suggestion that will begin in 25-26. There is a risk that could come with a fairly significant additional costs, because obviously if you reduce the amount of class contact time per teacher, then for the same number of teaching hours you would need more teachers, and there is no funding within the settlement for an increase in teaching staff. Just a couple of other quick points. In relation to the capital grant position, there is a slight improvement in the core capital grant of about £48 million nationally. That brings the total capital grant, including specific capital grant funding, to just shy of about £780 million nationally, which again is a very significant sum. But just to provide some context, that the total capital grant for local government in 1920 was 1.1 billion. So we still have some way to go to recover back to the position, the overall level of capital funding that was available in previous years. The Scottish Government have also published their public sector pay policy, which outlines their assumptions around about a 9% increase over the next 3 financial years. So that's from 25-26 out to 27-28. And while that policy doesn't strictly apply to local government, it obviously provides important context for those discussions to happen. There is one item just in terms of the what I have in my report around issues for the current year. So in paragraph 4.3 or section 4.3 of my report, at the third bullet point there, I do mention that in relation to the current year, there's £4.8 million of specific funding in relation to teacher numbers that at the time I had drafted this report hadn't been confirmed. Just to update members, that has now been confirmed, and we expect that funding to come in the last 2 weeks of March. So as I mentioned, the full detail of the local government settlement will be published this afternoon at some point, and I will update members as soon as I understand what the likely impact of that could be. Usually when the finance circular is published, that generates a lot of clarification and discussion between councils and COSLA and the Scottish Government, just to understand exactly what that means in terms of the council's individual grant position. But as that clarification is reached, I'll update members as soon as I possibly can. But happy to take questions on the report. Thank you. Thanks, Provost.
Thank you, Alistair. We do have a couple of questions from members. First from Alison Ann-Dowling.
Thanks, Provost. And thank you, Alison McCarthy, for that report. It makes very sobering reading in large part. I did have some questions that you've actually addressed in your verbal report, so I've just really got a comment. Some of the issues that have been raised will be getting addressed in later debate in the chamber when the motions come in, so I'll reserve some of my comments for then. But I think it's quite clear that the scale of the challenges facing the country as a whole to sort out the damage to our national finances is laid out, and that it's encapsulated with the challenges we're facing as a council. We know that much of that challenge has been caused by the previous Conservative government. Not all. High inflation, for example, that was precipitated, for example, by the war in Ukraine, has left challenges for any government and any administration to face. I do hope that, however, the record levels of additional funding that have been awarded in the Labour autumn statement are used wisely by the Scottish Government. It's great to see we're not looking at real term cuts this year by the looks of things, and that we're looking at a small uplift because we need it. But we really do need Scottish Government for the rest of the term of their administration to properly address the needs of this council, excuse me, and every other council in the grant settlements when they're finalised. I'll speak more on that as we go, but again, thank you, Alistair, because I know it must be very challenging when you're working to such tight deadlines to actually pull this together. So we appreciate your burning the midnight oil to give us these updates. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Graham Clark.
Thank you, Provost. Page 23, Renfrewshire Health and Social Care Partnership. The Integration Joint Board is looking at 22.9 million overspend possibility in 25-26, with only half of that, 10.1 million in reserves. If the IGB is unsuccessful in making its savings, because some of the methods which we might speak about later for making these savings may not work, what is our liability as a partner agency to that if they cannot meet that shortfall which they have in the years? Do we have to make that up from council funds?
Alistair?
Thanks, Provost. Thanks, Councillor Clark. Yeah, I understand, although I haven't had a chance to kind of review in depth the papers that are being considered by the Integration Joint Board members tomorrow, I think, is the scheduled meeting, which may have an impact on some of the figures that I've included in this report. Obviously, this report was put together at a point in time where I had the previous finance report from the IGB. You are correct in terms of that forecast outlook positioned for the partnership over the medium term. It does look very challenging. In the event that the partnership is unable to match its income and expenditure, then it would, under the governance arrangements for the board, it would enter what's technically called a financial recovery, and there would need to be a plan that's developed by the board. That would need to be agreed by both NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde and by Renfrewshire Council. As part of those financial, obviously the financial recovery arrangements would need to consider how they could, what measures the board themselves could take to address the funding challenges that they've got. But there is every possibility that the council would be requested to provide additional funding to the HSCP as part of those financial recovery arrangements. So that is a distinct possibility given their medium-term financial outlook. And as I did think it was worth highlighting within this report, because from my perspective, it is now a very real and very significant risk for the council to consider in terms of its own medium-term financial outlook.
Okay. Councillor Eddie Devine.
Thanks, Provost, because I've got 2 or 3 questions. On page 25, 6.4, there's a forecast date of completion for the museum of July 2025. How robust is that? On 6.5, it says that One Wren and the project team and external project managers are working to establish mitigation measures. Can we be informed of what mitigating measures the council is going to take? And the 6.6, there's several millions in figures thrown about here. 6.6, 6.7 and 6.8. And 6.8 it says the totals are 12.5 million in additional funding. And at the very bottom, I think it's the last four or 5 lines, it says members should remain aware that there remains 12 to 18 months of work to be completed in the project, and a significant contingency risk allowance has been factored into the proposed increase allocation. Could we be told what that figure is? And does that mean that the museum could run into 2027? before it opens. That,
No.
well, that's,
Is that,
no, it's all right, it's fine. I take your point there.
are you finished asking
Yeah,
the questions? Sorry, Eddie. I'll ask Alistair to come in and see if he can address what he can of your questions. Councillor Lisa Marie Hughes might want to come in as well to just reassure you. Alistair.
Okay, thanks, Provost, and thanks, Councillor Devine, for those questions. The July 25 date, that is the latest update that we have had from the main contractor in terms of that. That's their latest programme schedule date. Obviously, that is 7-8 months away from now. In terms of those mitigation arrangements, that is what both all the professional advisors, the One Rain team and indeed council staff are working very closely with CARE to understand what can be done over that period to review some of those, what was planned out in that programme, their latest iteration of their programme, to see if there is anything there that can be done. Perhaps pieces of work that are scheduled concurrently, could they be done at the same time rather than on a staged basis? But obviously we would need to understand the risks of doing that. So there are a number of areas where we're looking at the programme to try and understand if there is any way of pulling back that July schedule date to a date that would be in advance of that. But there are a number of risks in doing that, and we don't want to impact on the overall quality of the work that's being carried out. So that's something that we need to approach very very carefully. In terms of your question around about the contingency arrangement, so I have mentioned in, so let me just get the right paragraph, within paragraph 6.7, that there is 3 million. So effectively that portion, what I've highlighted there is effectively what I am setting aside in terms of further contingency allowances over and above what is already within the existing budgets. So within that 12.5, I'm prudently estimating that 3 million of that is required in terms of addressing any further issues that may emerge over the completion of the work right out until the museum is opened. So hopefully that answers your questions, Councillor Devine.
Councillor, are you okay, Lisa Marie?
I don't have anything to add. That was very good, Alistair.
Okay. Eddie?
Oh, that's right now.
Okay. Yeah, just drop him a wee email and I'm sure he'll give you any information that you need. I think it's a concern for all of us. Yeah, absolutely. And we all are, and we want it done to the best quality we can possibly get. And as I said before, great things take time, but we are eager to get it finished and we are eager to get it open. But thank you for your questions and comments. Okay, can we agree that report then? Agreed. Okay, John, how are we with how are the children? Are they ready? 5 minutes. Okay, good. Okay, item 5 is the report on neighbour disputes. We do have Rose here with us, who I think will be happy to answer any questions that we have, if we have any. Okay, Rose, just getting settled. Rose, I think maybe perhaps rather than asking you to speak to the report, we'll just see if the councillors have any questions. Maybe that would work better. Yeah, rather than going over it again. Councillor Kevin Montgomery.
Thank you, Provost. I'll keep this brief. Just to say that we welcome the report and commend the officers and the time taken to illustrate what is a very serious problem for some of our residents and a real quality of life issue for those that are affected by neighbour issues. It's really good to see the report illustrate the growth of CCTV systems as a real problem area in neighbour disputes, and I think that's something that's going to grow in years to come, and it's quite good that we're looking at that and recognising the seriousness of that in an area which is really problematic in terms of regulation, because nobody really takes responsibility for it. It's important council looks to be proactive in this area, and I hope that this report can assist in feeding into policy areas, because it is a really important issue for some of our residents. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we all agree. Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor James McLaren.
Thank you, Provost. Like Councillor Montgomery has said, I welcome the report into this neighbour disputes. It's like it's the matter that I initially raised with the Audit, Risk and Scrutiny Board, so it's good to see the report here today. Obviously, neighbour disputes can blight the lives of local residents. But hopefully the recommendations that we've got here will be implemented, and departments will continue to work together and learn from experience of other departments and work together with other councils even and to learn further and essentially make Renfrewshire a better place to live and work. I'm sure every councillor here will have come across neighbour disputes. It isn't always easy to find a solution to. If you haven't come across neighbourhood disputes, then I suggest you're not knocking enough doors because it's in every community. But yeah, good to see this report here today, and hopefully we can find some solutions to the ongoing problems out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Andy Doig.
Thanks, Provost. As the convener of the Audit, Risk and Scrutiny Board, I'd like to thank the two offers. This began in 2022, right through to this year, so it was a very substantial body of work that was carried out. I'd like to thank the two officers who worked in that. I'd like to also thank my two deputies who worked in that, Councillor Montgomery and then Councillor MacDonald, because I know that both Councillors Kevin and Janice, like myself, have got a background in the third sector. I think that was really useful. But I'd also like to thank every member of the Audit, Risk and Scrutiny Board, because they really did contribute in a very substantial and significant way, because I think we all understood that this is a really, really big issue for our constituents, and it's a very difficult issue to tackle. Having worked 20 years in addiction support up until this year, I can see it from both sides of the story. The report does significantly note that a lot of the antisocial behaviour has its roots in tenants who have got mental health or maybe drug and addiction issues. And this is really problematic, and this is where I very much welcome the report. I welcome the fact that Renfrewshire, compared to other authorities, seems to, we're ahead of the game in some regards, but we've still got a terrible challenge to face because some constituents out there are suffering themselves severe mental health issues because of the impact of antisocial neighbours. And it's very difficult because there's a section of people in the community who have got drug and alcohol issues and mental health issues who are not significantly ill enough to be hospitalised in full-time care. But even with support in the community, Provost, they're still struggling to live independent lives. And that's where that's the difficult dilemma, the horns of the dilemma that we're faced with. And I'll finish on this. One of the reasons why I do support the principle of a national care service, although delivered definitely by local government. Maybe if we did have a national care service through time, it would be able to look at this gap in the market, because it's something that has to be addressed. It has to be addressed for the individuals concerned who are living chaotic lives. Also has to be addressed for the constituents. In some cases are suffering terribly. But it's an excellent report and I commend its production. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Doig. It's a really important point that you raised about the mental health. Thank you for that. Councillor Janice MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add to comments that I endorse from other colleagues from Audit, Risk and Scrutiny Board. In my opinion, the Neighbour Disputes gives a super example of work that could be transformative in terms of the future, and is really going to challenge our thinking in relation to inequalities and how various services are managed across the piece. And you know, when I look at some of the retraction decision making, it's the services at the very front line that support and enable communities to live better together that are being withdrawn or reduced. And I think we have to challenge our thinking to actually work around the Christie report and very much around prevention and early intervention to stop us having to pick up horrendous costs further down the road. And I give Tannahill Road as an example of the huge costs that it's had to a whole lot of public bodies in relation to managing that regeneration in the area. So I feel very strongly that this report might be in danger of being under-noticed. And I think we really need to maybe challenge ourselves to bring it forward. So I'm keen to make sure that there's a regular review of some of these services with the lived experience involved, so that we can really use evidence-led data to inform some of the decision making, because I do think it's already making a difference in some of the spend decisions that are being made at locality level.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, good points, Janice. Thanks for your comments. Rose, no questions really, but plenty of comments, mostly positive. Glad to see the report here. I don't know if there's anything that you want to mention, but thank you very much for bringing this to us today. Can we agree the report then? Welcome the report, in fact. Agreed. Okay, that brings us on to the governance report, and following this, I will go and bring the children of Williamsburgh Primary School in to sing us some Christmas carols. Mark, you got anything to say? No?
Ideally not, Provost. No, I'm happy to take any questions from any members. I think there is actually an amendment, however.
Okay, we have an amendment that is being circulated as I speak. Who's the amendment from? Councillor Nicholson. Who's your seconder, Councillor Nicholson? Councillor Cameron. Councillor Nicholson, do you want to go ahead?
Thanks, Provost. No, it's quite a straightforward amendment, just regarding to the administration and changes to appointment to the IJB board. Sorry. Oh, is it? I sure have. Sorry about that.
You must have been up late last night.
That's that correct. That's that corrective text thing again. 2025, Provost. Thank you.
Okay. Agreed. Okay, thank you. And you can chat amongst yourselves. I will go and make sure that the young people are. Yes, a quick you've got time for a quick comfort break. Try and hurry back as soon as you can, though, so we can get the kids organised.